You're listening to A Light at the Other Side, where we're sharing stories of resilience, healing, and hope. We share the experiences of adoptees, domestic violence survivors, military veterans, and more, so some episodes may contain potentially triggering accounts of trauma. To fully appreciate the light, we must sometimes peer into the dark. I want to welcome you back and send my heartfelt appreciation if you are coming back from previous seasons. There's been quite a lot that has transpired since the last season. Due to some changing dynamics with our family needs over the past few months, I've had to leave the shared office space with its beautiful podcast booth and have set up a little podcasting area at home. I hope the audio quality does not suffer, but I've taken measures to make it as high quality as I can. Obviously, the world has gone through a lot. Lots and lots of big events, good and bad, since we last spoke. Or rather, I spoke and you listened. Most recently, the land of the last 8 and 10 generations of my people, father and mother's sides respectively, was ravaged by a tremendous hurricane. I planned to return to record this podcast a month ago, was delayed by other life events, and then the hurricane happened, and I have been deep in the depths of both profound grief and whatever relief efforts in which I could participate from a distance. I also wanted to add that I have launched a new project that combines all my previous projects under one umbrella. CounterStory Media shares the stories of those who have been previously silenced or ignored, auditing the narrative one story at a time. You can find CounterStory Media on both Substack and Patreon, where you can directly financially support my efforts with these storytelling projects. I am striving to keep The Light at the Other Side a free podcast, but that is where you can go to support all of those efforts. That being said, I had already decided that the theme of Season 3 would be family. What it means to be a family, a mother, a father, a son or daughter, and I look forward to sharing my stories and some others with you. With no further ado, I want to warmly welcome you back into my world and share with you stories from the light at the other side. What makes a father, anyway? Genetics, time, commitment, involvement. How do we define this most pivotal of relationships? He was a big man, well over 6 feet tall, larger than life in many ways, and yet he was gentle, patient, and kind. I immediately felt safe, safer than I had with any man. I was only 7 years old, but my adoptive grandfather had taken me in from day one without batting an eye. He treated me just like all the other grandkids without skipping a beat. We walked the fields of his farm, his pocket jingling with quarters as he quizzed me on my multiplication tables and rewarded me with a quarter for each full set completed correctly. When he died suddenly, I was only 11. I was utterly devastated. I had some very early memories of my father. I was told countless times that perhaps I was imagining them. Some photos given to me recently actually confirmed my memories. I recalled a thick, dark, bushy mustache that would tickle when he kissed my face and head. I recalled brown eyes, and I recalled us playing in the front yard of a blue and white striped trailer set back in a grove of trees. Some adults throughout my childhood tried to make me believe I was imagining those memories, that I had cobbled together images of men in movies and television shows to concoct this idea of what my father looked like. It turns out my memory was precisely spot on. I knew it was my father in my memories, and I was barely 2 years old at the time we were taken into state custody. I have learned since that he was a very imperfect man, prone to bouts of drinking. He served some time behind bars. I'm not going to sugarcoat any of the realities of who he was, but he was the man who gave me life, and I did carry those memories of him, core memories that remained even when others attempted to gaslight me into letting go of them. Why? Because our connection to our biological parents is that intense. It transcends time and proximity. Our fathers hold such an integral place in our lives, yet so many of them are so quick to discard relationships with their children. And some, like my father, have the option taken away from them. As much as we try to fill that void, nothing fills the space left by a father. When I began dating my husband, he would stop what he was doing around 8:30 every evening and call his kids. For the first 6 months we lived together, he lived in South Carolina with me while we prepared to transition back to Virginia. That was the hardest time for him. He called his kids daily, texted them multiple times a day, and we all drove 7 hours each way once a month to visit them. When we moved back, he was eager to get back into the routine of being with his children as much as humanly possible. He took on side jobs to make sure everyone was taken care of. He began working a full second job in late 2019, ensuring that anything his kids needed, they had. And while juggling that commitment, made it to every single softball game, recital, concert, and event. Meanwhile, he was adjusting to being a stepdad to my children, and then we welcomed a baby of our own. So I've seen this man in just about every role a father can play, and he's one of the most impressive people I know. He has sacrificed time and again for the children in his life, even kids who come to us through no relation whatsoever. He inspires me to be a better parent, to dig deep and keep going when I get exhausted and burned out, and to never, ever give up on a relationship with my children, no matter what. My oldest son's father, my first husband, died suddenly in a car accident when our son was a toddler. In that void, his grandfather stepped in quite a bit, but his grief over losing his child colored some of his decisions and behaviors, causing some unfortunate situations for my son. I've made internal commitments to refrain from delving into writing or discussions concerning the father of my children who are still underage. Their relationships are complex, but there is always room for growth and change, and I consistently encourage it. I myself have cut ties with my adopters, and I never was terribly close with either of them anyway. My male adopter had moments of kindness and generosity that always showed glimmers of promise. Unfortunately, his decision to be a continual enabler of my female adopter has precluded any type of relationship into my adult life. I see those daddy's girls whose fathers show up on their doorstep with a shotgun when they find out their daughter's husband hit her, or those that just show up with packs of paper towels and toilet paper from Sam's, or those that just call often, as my husband does with his daughter, to keep their relationship alive and let his daughter know she is valued and cherished. Sometimes I am positively green with envy. Going through life as a woman, particularly those years as a single mother when I felt like no one truly cared if I was safe and protected, constructed a distinct and specific type of loneliness. It made me build walls, big walls, to protect my heart and mind, especially once I came to accept with finality that no one was going to protect me. I was on my own, fatherless, in a harsh world. The death of my biological father in 2021, just a few months before I was set to go meet him, cemented that fact. Suffice it to say that the representation of fatherhood in our home is as complex, difficult, and even tragic as it is beautiful, restorative, and healthy. I think about my adoptive granddaddy. He was strong, Southern, and conservative. He could have used that upbringing to be cruel, harsh, demanding, and mean. Instead, he was kind. He certainly had a choice of how to accept an adopted grandchild. He could have been distant or awkward, but he wasn't. He was unceasingly welcoming and kind. My husband had a choice of how to accept my children. He could have been distant or awkward, but he wasn't. He has been unceasingly welcoming and kind. This doesn't extend only to our children, but on to their partners and friends. He may pretend to grumble, but he insists on driving them, making sure they're okay, and making sure they feel at home in our house. What makes a father is not inherently a DNA connection. What makes a father is those nights after a big family blowout when that man makes sure that all the kids are okay and tells them he loves them before he goes to bed. Because I'm lying next to him, and I assure you, he can't go to sleep without making sure the kids know they are loved, no matter what. It's the nights where he comes in from working 8, 12, 16 hours and sits down at a table with his children to eat dinner and asks them how their days were. It's the long weeks of working so much he can go days without seeing his children. He's gone before they're up, and he gets home after bedtime. It's the moments he can suspend his tough machismo to wear fingernail polish, don a tiara, and play with his little girl. It's the moments he stops what he's doing to read them a book before bed, changing his voice for every character. It's the guy standing on the fence at every softball game, even when they're angsty teens and barely speak to him or even acknowledge his presence. It doesn't matter. He's there all the same. He may be imperfect, because God, aren't we all? But what makes a man a father is that he picks himself up every single day, recommits to his children, and consistently gives them his attention, affection, wisdom, and time. It's the man who shows up. That's a father. I may not have been as blessed in that department, but I know my children sure are. And because they've experienced this, now they too will become great fathers to their children, my grandchildren, and generations of our family's children will be raised by good dads, all because one man opens his eyes every morning and chooses to be a kick-ass father. When a daughter wants a father, but he's unreachable, figuring out how to hold space for grief and acceptance has taken a lifetime. By Becca C.O. in contribution to Adoptere. For the first few years of my life, I had a father who was unable to provide for my physical needs. He couldn't provide stability, security, or any semblance of a life to support a child's healthy growth. Still, I believe he loved me, though I will never be sure. I used to think he abandoned me, and he did, but time and understanding have led me to believe he abandoned himself long before he left me and couldn't return. He found his mother after she died by suicide, and I can only imagine the indelible mark such an event leaves on a young soul. The state of New Mexico stripped him of parental rights when he couldn't stay clean or provide for his 3 children's basic needs. They gave me a new father. He provided for every physical need. I had a comfortable home, not large, but big enough for a family of 4. I had hot food on the table every night, and when money was tight, I didn't know. He struggled to provide the stability or security that consistent emotional connections give to children. He's told me he loves me, but I've questioned his love every day for 33 years. Time and maturity have led me to believe he stopped loving himself long before he met me. Experience has taught me you cannot love another without first loving yourself. When I was adopted at 6, it felt awkward. My new parents were hesitant to embrace me, yet excited, as any person would be when they don't quite know what to expect from a stranger. I don't remember feeling excited. I remember hesitation, nervousness, and wondering if this time would last. My adoptive mother was eager and gentle, but also determined to discipline me and get me to conform to their rules. She wanted no difference between how my brother was treated and how I was treated. But in trying to treat us the same, she created differences. My brother often could do no wrong, whereas I always was. His understanding of people and their expectations is innate. Mine is contrived through years of observing others and learning through mistake after mistake after mistake. I've since learned how impactful my autism and history of trauma were in my lack of understanding of how to behave in social situations, including within my family. Our first year together was trying for all of us. My adoptive father was always distant. I do not remember him being warm or affectionate. He treated my brother the same way, though now they are close and there is affection between them. He looks at my brother with pride and always has a smile for him. He looks at me with resignation or tolerance. The smiles are forced. People say there is a special bond between father and daughter, but I've never felt this bond. My father is not sentimental. He does not condone tears and calls anyone sensitive too soft. As a child, I was too soft for my father. I cried too much. I have consistently failed to meet his expectations of what a good daughter should be. I have tattoos. I am divorced. I don't go to church. Growing up, I was expected to greet him with a smile and warm attitude when I walked out of my room in the morning. I got scolded for being in a bad mood if I didn't. I've never been a morning person. I need quiet and time to ease into the day. I don't start in a bad mood. I arrive there when pushed, prodded, or pulled in a direction I'm unprepared to go. My dad's mood every morning was irrelevant to his expectations for me. He hated his job and would wear his anger on his sleeve. He carried it like a shield. I'm not exaggerating when I say he was grumpy every morning. Still, he kept that job year after year because it paid well and offered benefits and a pension. It gave him stability and purpose, something he lacked as a child. Can you imagine feeling like you have no purpose as a child, like you're not wanted? My dad grew up in a house with a man who treated him like trash, a nightmare of a stepfather. He lost his father at 6 years old. At 18, my dad came home to find all his belongings on the front lawn. He got the message and struck out on his own. I'm not sure when he started drinking, but by the time my mom met him, he'd had 1 DUI and 1 divorce, really an annulment, under his belt. My dad was a broken man, and my mom saved him. My dad drank through my entire childhood. He'd arrive home from work and stay in his shed until dinner, drinking the day from his mind. At dinner, he'd either sit silently, reprimand our manners, or grumble at my mom's cooking. I often hated him for this because I saw my mom working hard to ensure everyone's happiness, especially his. Alas, I do know what it feels like to be unwanted. I can relate to my father's childhood pain, and it has allowed me to form empathy for him. My empathy has allowed me to forgive him. But it doesn't bring us closer. If anything, I wonder how he can look at me, at my choices, and not have an ounce of empathy. Sure, he's felt sorry for me, but my mom is the person who has always been there to help me. Because of my adoptive father's behavior towards me, I've always wondered what life would have been like with my biological father. I will always carry 2 wounds: the loss of a parental connection that never had the chance to blossom, and the fact that the other can never fully be reached, though he's only hours away from me. I had a father for the first 5 years of my life, and I've missed him every day since our final goodbye. I have a father now, and I have fought the bitterness left by his distance every day since our first hello. I am only now accepting that I will never have the special bond people refer to. With my adoptive father, there will never be a closeness I can call comfort. My biological father passed away at the height of COVID. I formed a relationship with him through email for a few brief years, but when he tried to tell me how to live my life, I got angry and cut off contact. My decision was sealed when I became a mother. I looked at my tiny infant and thought, how could you ever give something like this away? I could not swallow my feelings any longer. my biological father had no right to comment on my life because he wasn't present. With my adoptive father, I've committed to stop walking on eggshells. When I visit and he repeats patterns of behavior I dealt with as a child, I ignore him and focus on spending quality time with my mom. I've tried to be close with my adoptive father, but unless I play the role of a perfect daughter, he is dissatisfied and lets me know through silent treatments, cold shoulders, and sour faces. There is some solace in the fact that he does this to almost everyone. I know it is a lonely existence when everyone always pisses you off. When I see myself mirroring his attitudes towards people, I work to stop myself. I do not want to live a life filled with anger because people who are supposed to love and care for me failed. I do not want to pass my anger on to my children. It's easy for me to say both my fathers failed me because in many ways they did. I could focus on their shortcomings, and sometimes do, but this does no good. I'm an adult who can care for herself. I can give myself the love I lacked as a child. Besides, I believe they both did their best with the circumstances they've been handed. Could they have done better? Sure, we all can. I would be lying if I said I don't still feel a twinge of sadness when I think of the relationships I don't have, but my sadness does not turn into anger or bitterness. As I head into the holiday season, I can't help but remember how challenging Christmas has often been with my family. The holidays are difficult to participate in. Fond memories are darkened by how I was often a disappointment to him. If I didn't act the way my father expected, then Christmas joy was replaced by feelings of confusion and sadness. Always, memories of the last Christmas before I was adopted surface, reminding me there was a father before him who loved me but couldn't provide enough. I suppose neither man could, but still, both are a gift. I am grateful for the short time I had with my biological father. He gave me the gift of art. He instilled something in me that has carried me this far, whether I can remember what it is or not. His spirit is a part of me. I have respect and gratitude for my adoptive father. He worked where he was threatened and mistreated and passed over for promotion to keep a roof above our head and food on our table. I have told my father many times I love and appreciate him. Still, he puts up walls. Only he can tear those down, not me. While I will never have the father every little girl wants, I can care for myself. I can learn for myself the things a father should teach his daughter. I will always mourn what could have been and what I missed by having two absent fathers. I'm still learning how to hold my grief while cherishing positive memories. Because as hard as these men were, they were human, flawed like the rest of us. As a woman and a mother, I can't speak on what it means to be a father. I can speak about the depths of pain that comes from not having a father in your corner, and I can encourage any men listening that have children or have adopted or welcomed children into your life by marriage to take the role very seriously. The one bit of advice that seems universal is this: there's no such thing as a perfect parent, but what most children or people want from their father is presence, patience, acceptance, and unconditional love. I'm so glad you've joined us for Season 3 of The Light at the Other Side, and I hope you'll join us again next week as we explore more about family.